There we go. Hey guys, sorry about that little technical difficulty with OBS at the beginning. But hey everybody, welcome to the stream. Thank you for coming out. So I'm sure you've seen some of the advertisements here. Today we're going to talk about some of the new things on Crowfall. So we put this presentation together, a little background information. Myself and a couple of the other members in our guild, Tenacious, Latest Crowd, and Zorf, have been looking to get into Crowfall. We've been following it through a little bit of pre-alpha, and while we've been following it, we've been getting a lot of questions from our guild and out on a couple of different guilds about why we're following Crowfall, what we like about it, what we want to see about it, what we hope to get out of it. And so we decided to put this presentation together that will talk about some of the differences in Crowfall that we think makes it stand out from other MMOs, the good and the bad, and what you could expect to get out of Crowfall if you've seen it, heard of it, you're interested in it a little bit, but you're not quite sure what it offers. So this presentation is to kind of go over that and give everyone an idea of what Crowfall is, what makes it different, and if you're going to want to play the game. And obviously, if you want to play the game or not is going to be up to you, but hopefully this presentation will help you decide one way or the other. So with that said, I do want to call out, we do have somebody monitoring chat. If you guys have any questions throughout the presentation, please do feel free, throw them out in chat. We've got Latest Crowd, if you can keep an eye for him in the chat room, that's going to be monitoring for those questions. And we have Zorf also on audio with me, who will be answering questions throughout the stream with us as well.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah. So we have obviously some members from Tenacious. We have some members from other guilds, though, as well. I know we have AIE in attendance out there, and we've publicized this out to Reddit and a few other places. So like I said, we're going to do our best to get some questions answered. As we go through, we've divided this out into different topics, and the presentation is available, so you guys will be able to grab this, download it, share it with your guilds, whatever you want to later, if you forget any of the information or want to review it later. But please do ask questions. We'll be pausing every couple of slides to make sure that we get those questions answered. Another fun thing that just came out that we learned about towards the end, Zorf was able to reach out, and we might have a special guest joining us later on in the presentation. He won't be here right at the beginning, but Mr. Thomas Blair may be joining in. He is one of the the design director for Crowfall. You can see on screen a little bit of his credentials here, but he's worked extensively with expansions on EverQuest. He did Star Wars. He was on the Star Wars Galaxy team during the Jump to Lightspeed implementation. He has a very extensive background doing design in MMOs. So if we can get him on later, that'll be awesome as well. And you guys will be free to ask him some questions and get those answered. So the first big thing where we can start off, I guess, is what is Crowfall, right? So if you've never heard of the game before, this might be your first experience to it. So Crowfall is a blend of different genres. It's an MMORPG mixed with survival, mixed with throne simulator. It takes a little bit of design elements from a lot of different games and pulls them in together. The big thing with Crowfall is, players will need to incorporate the strategy and politics in order to survive. It is a heavily player-driven type of game. There is some PvE, which we'll get into in a little bit, but players are going to really be what drives a lot of the game. It's third-person point of view, team-oriented action combat. It does have an open world. It is, like I mentioned earlier, PvP-centric. It was inspired by the second and top third PvP games of all time, even Shadowbane, and it plans to join the ranks amongst one of the greats. If you're interested, there is a link here in the presentation. You can check out the 5.7 update. However, I believe the 5.8 update is right around the corner. So if you want to hold out for that too, the 5.8 update shouldn't be too far out, and that'll, from what we hear, should bring in a full game loop and make the game a little more interesting to actually go in and play and less of a sandbox proof of concept. Did you have anything, Dan?
On that point right there, 5.8, from my understanding, they're thinking probably late October, hopefully by Halloween it'll be coming out, as the rumors I've heard. It will be the first one that'll have a full campaign, so you'll have a win condition. So it should be a lot more fun to play. Can we go ahead?
Awesome. All right. So the next thing that we can talk about here is what is a campaign? You've heard us mention that a few times on the previous slide, and I think Zorf's talked about it a little bit. So a campaign is kind of your traditional MMO where you'll have a realm or a server. One second. Okay, so a campaign is a traditional MMO type of realm or server, but there's a couple of really big differences with it. So the big difference, and I'm just going to jump right to it here, is the campaigns are procedurally generated and they're editable. So the Crowfall team has a dev kit called Clusterizer, which there's a link to it here that we can send out in chat. And what the Clusterizer is it allows the Crowfall team to go in and edit on the fly to build these campaigns. They can drop down parcels, and each of the parcels comes through and links together in an elaborate form of type of a Tetris. So this program lets them go through and stitch together new campaigns kind of on the fly. The other thing on the next slide here with campaigns of why would you want campaigns? So the big thing that campaigns bring you that's pretty different from an MMO is that campaigns are real similar to seasons that you would get in like Path of Exile or Diablo 3, in that they're a fresh start for your character, with one big exception which we'll get to later. But because of that fresh start feel, you can log into a campaign and be on pretty much even playing ground with everybody else. It's that new MMO feeling, and the campaigns are going to be different. So just like the seasons in PoE or Diablo, each campaign can have different rule sets. And they're pretty massive. I mean, they can change the terrain, they can change the maps, they can change the win conditions of the campaign, which is another big thing with campaigns. There's an actual win condition. You can go in and play a campaign, and there's an end goal. There's a purpose for playing it beyond just logging in and hanging out with your friends and getting max power and beating the end boss. It's going to be PvP heavy, and you're going to have a goal to win. So real quick, there is some more on campaigns here. Do you have anything to add, Zorf, or any questions from the chat?
Yeah, let's go forward a little bit to the rest, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it.
Okay. So as we were talking about earlier, with the campaigns, the rules can change on a per campaign basis, and that is much more significant than what it looks at on face value. What this means is if you join one campaign, it could be a guild versus guild campaign, let's say, and you play through it and you find out that you're just having a terrible time. You want a free for all, right? They don't have to change the whole game. You can play out the guild versus guild campaign and then join potentially a free for all campaign later on and get a different play experience. Another thing is balancing typically is done at the character level. In a lot of other games, where if the Necromancer is overpowered, you nerf the Necromancer or you buff the counter to the Necromancer. In Crowfall, the plan is with the different campaigns, you can balance overpowered and underpowered characters with the campaign and change the setting. For instance, if archers are overpowered in one campaign, in the next campaign, maybe there's just less open areas and fields, which will make close combat characters more valuable and reduce the effectiveness of archers a little bit. So you don't have to rebalance the characters. You don't lose any of your investment in your character or your skill tree as you're going through. You'll just join a different campaign where the environment makes it so that you have to be more tactical with your skills. Your skills don't change with every patch wherever anybody thinks that there needs to be a balance.
Yeah, to go a little bit more into that, the new feel on each one should be a lot of fun, and you'll be able to do different ones. Like where he's talking about here, I'll go do the first part of the slide. Is there's going to be different possibilities on the campaign. Some of the ones that they talked about when they first announced it was God's Reach, which is kind of like a faction versus faction versus faction, which is pretty much how they're playing right now, where they have an order, chaos, and a balance. Order tries to go one way, chaos the other, and balance tries to keep it in between. And that's the one faction that'll probably be the easiest. And we can watch the YouTube video on this to see how they explain it. The infected is more where you're going to have 12 different gods that you could pick. Shadows and dregs are very close the way that everybody's describing them right now. But dregs is a little bit more hardcore and a little bit more challenging is the way they're going to do it. Most people are saying God's Reach and dregs are probably the most likely, but talking to Pan, she said that nothing's set in stone at this time. There was a question from Bulldog. He asked, do character stats get reset at the end of a campaign? No, they do not. You're going to have, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, you're going to have skill sets that will not get reset, but all your gear will, depending on the campaign rules, will be gone, other than what maybe win conditions are that you can export out to your Eternal Kingdom, but everything else will be reset. You want to click on that YouTube video real quick, Namra?
Sure.
I don't know if it'll play.
Typically, the way games like this work, characters are locked to a particular server. So we've changed that. The characters actually can go from one server to the next to the next.
The worlds of Crowfall are broken into bands or rings. The outermost ring is the Eternal Kingdoms. These worlds are permanent and they function as player housing, guild housing.
Every world inside the Eternal Kingdoms is actually a campaign world. That means it's a game in and of itself, with a beginning, a middle, and...
Right here. So if you look at this picture right here...
Typically, the way games like this work, characters are locked to a particular server. So we've changed that. The characters actually can go...
Sorry about that. You said you can't hear this, Sorf?
No, I can't hear it. But if you go a little bit further, you should be able to get to the point where...
Typically, the way games like this work, characters are locked to a particular server. So we've changed that. The characters actually can go from one server to the next to the next.
The worlds of Crowfall are broken into bands or rings.
So go ahead and
the outermost ring is the Eternal Kingdoms. These worlds are permanent and they function as player housing, guild housing.
Every world inside the Eternal Kingdoms is actually a campaign world. That means it's a game in and of itself, with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Players can decide which world to go to based on which rule set they find most exciting.
So the next ring is called the God's Reach. That's where you would have your three-faction war going on. Order, chaos, and balance.
The Lords of Order have the most straightforward goal. All they want to do is push the hunger back and save these worlds.
The Lords of Chaos are willing to let these worlds be destroyed in a hope to appease the hunger.
The third faction is balance. The goal of the balance faction is to ensure that the other two factions are kind of equal in power.
The next ring is the infected worlds, and that's where all of the gods fight.
These are the worlds where the gods actually have broken down in their treaty alliances with each other, and it's every god for themselves.
There's 12 gods, and so therefore 12 factions. Whichever god you've pledged allegiance for is the faction you're fighting for.
The next ring is a place where gods won't even go. It's called the Shadow, and that's where guild on guild all-out war happens.
No factions, merely a battle to see which guild will be victorious.
So the final ring is right on the edge of the hunger. It's called the Dregs.
These are the worlds that are the most dangerous and the most deadly. Not even your guild can protect you here.
And this is where players have all-out war in winner-takes-all, no-holds-barred PvP.
With each progressive ring, as you get closer and closer to the hunger, the world's getting more deadly, but the rewards are getting greater and greater.
All right. So do you want to speak to that at all, Zorf? And while you're doing that,
Yeah.
I'm going to try to turn you up a little. Go ahead.
Okay, so basically they went through the different ones on here, God's Reach, the Infected, Shadows, and Dregs, and kind of explained it. But they're going to probably only start off with 2 of those, and basically in end of October, November, whenever they release 5.0, 5.8, we're going to start learning which one they will do. And go forward with that. So my guess is right now we're doing God's Reach, eventually they're going to go at guild versus guild due to the fact that we have that's the throne simulator part.
All right, awesome stuff. And I'm getting feedback that you're getting that they can hear you okay now. So
okay.
All right, so the campaign rules, right? So that's a little bit about the campaigns. How the video summarized it up, right? We're going to have the different factions. Those are the flavor of campaigns that you can expect out of Crowfall. But alongside the different bigger flavors, some of the campaign rules that you can see out there can get reset. So each and every single campaign has the potential to be different, and as far as I know right now is planned to be unique and different from all the others. A lot of the different variables that they can set using that dev toolkit that we talked about earlier. You can change the map size, right? The world can be right up next to each other so that there's constant combat, or it can be huge and spread out so that it's sparse and you'll rarely encounter other people unless it's intentional. How long the campaign runs for. They can run anywhere from 1 month to 12 months, or what's, or anywhere in between. They might make those longer or shorter later. Import-export rules. So one of the things that we haven't talked about yet is the Eternal Kingdom, which is coming up later in the presentation. But the Eternal Kingdom is kind of the part of your character that's persistent. It stays forever. And those import-export rules can change what you do. So they're still tweaking stuff. It is pre-alpha, obviously that disclaimer on everything. But at the moment, you can import and export a limited number of things between campaigns based on the campaign rules. So you can get a somewhat some type of permanence out of the campaigns. It's not always a fresh start, but they're still tweaking it so that you get that fresh start feel, and nobody's going to go into it with a huge advantage over anyone else.
Yeah, that one, how they're going to do that and how it'll end up is still a lot up in the air. The Eternal Kingdom, they're talking about it being a hub for stuff that we can export. Currently, we can import and export 100 items, but in the future, who knows what that'll be on the win conditions. The people that win are supposed to get more export. I personally believe and I would prefer if like the exports, like import export during the campaign, you could import export everything, but only for that campaign. So there would be a lot of trade happening. But at the end, you'd get win conditions that would be like VIP, dyes, cosmetic stuff, things for your Eternal Kingdom. But I wouldn't want things that would give you an advantage, because let's say we won and we were ahead of other people. I wouldn't want a bigger advantage for the next campaign compared to other people. I think that starting off fairly is better, but other people have different opinion on that, so it's still up in the air.
Yep. And then you can see on the next slide here a couple of the other things that can be tweaked. Magic level, archetype restrictions, so they might restrict certain races or classes from a game. You might get a campaign where it's Minotaur only, and everybody has to play a Minotaur, and you just get a brawler type game. Resource scarcity, right? If anybody's played StarCraft, this is kind of where you get into parts that could be a little bit like an RTS. There might be super rare resources right in the middle of a bunch of different realms, and all three realms, the entire campaign, are fighting over who controls those resources. Death penalties, right? So there's several different things that they're looking at right now for death penalties. When you die, do you lose the resources you're carrying? Do you lose the gear you're carrying? Does the gear decay? Do you have corpse runs? Can other people loot your corpse? So all of that is tweakable within the different campaigns. And my guess is at launch, we're going to see quite a few different campaigns that come out, and you can kind of pick the flavor that you like and that you want to play on.
Yeah. On the death penalties, the most common, it sounds like at this point, is going to be what you're wearing, and the major things that you're using will not be lootable unless you leave your corpse here for a long period of time. But they may be able to loot like the resources that you're gathering. So dying obviously isn't going to be good if you have resources on you, but it's not going to be, hey, it took me 3 months to get this outfit and I lose it all. So it doesn't sound like it's going to be that hardcore. It's going to probably be in the minimal where most people will play, but there could be some on either end. And the game can be what people want. And that's the cool thing about campaigns, because if they find out people really enjoy one way or another, they can make more servers in that area to accommodate those type of people.
Yep. So now going into a little bit of outside of the game, let's look at some of the economics of the game for your real life, right? How much is the game going to cost? So Crowfall's going with a model that's going to be buy once, play forever. So for $50, you get the game and you can play it until the servers are taken offline forever, right? However long that takes. Now, in addition to the buy once, play forever, there is a VIP membership. The VIP membership costs $15 a month, and they're tweaking that right now in the pre-alpha to make sure that the VIP membership is worth having, but not game-changing, right? So they don't want to make it that if you have VIP and somebody else doesn't have VIP, it's an instant win, right? So they're tweaking that right now. As it says in the notes, it's going to be similar to like an EVE Online membership. Now, the other thing with VIP is that there will be a way to get it in-game, right? You can trade for it, that type of thing, to get some VIP benefit. So if you're a budget gamer and you've put your $50 down for the retail and you decide that you really want VIP, there will be a way in-game to get it, but it won't be necessary for you to be able to contribute and play.
Yeah, the one point on that is VIP is tradable, which is similar to EVE. So if you play a lot, you'll definitely be able to trade with people that have VIP. The Kickstarter packages came with a lot of VIP months in it, so people are going to have these VIPs that they can trade away to get help and help other people. VIPs from currently is not going to be pay to win at all on giving you power, but it's going to give you more flexibility. So if, and I think we have a slide on this, but I'll kind of go over it real quick. If you have VIP, if you don't have VIP and you want to be the best fighter in the game, there's nothing stopping you from being the best fighter. You can go all the way on your skills. You can get all the items in the game. Nothing's stopping you. But as with the VIP, you could be the best fighter and the best crafter, or the best. You can get 2 out of the 3. So you can have a little bit more flexibility with the VIP. So it's going to be very desirable.
Yep.
Any questions on that one? I know that's one of the ones we get a lot of text on. Okay, let's go ahead, and if somebody comes up, we'll answer.
Okay, so now the VIP, obviously you can get through different things, but we've also got a cash shop. Now in the cash shop, they're pushing really hard to make sure that there's nothing that's going to give you a tangible benefit in-game. This is going to be a cosmetic or convenience cash shop. So you see here we talk about EK, and I don't think we've talked about it on a slide yet, but but the EK is your Eternal Kingdom. Your Eternal Kingdom is kind of your home. That's going to be your guild base. It's going to be where you live when you're not in a campaign. So there's the campaign world, but then outside of all of the campaigns, you also have your Eternal Kingdom world. Your Eternal Kingdom is going to be where you can trade items and meet up with other members of the guild and just hang out and chill, right? It's like your guild base, with one big difference. Other people who aren't in your guild can visit it too, and they'll be able to trade things in your guild shop, like the VIP we talked about before. I would imagine like the cash shop cosmetics you'd be able to sell in your EK. So the cash shop, right, we've got a lot of bullet points here. You can look through them, but it's your generic cash shop stuff, right? It's going to be cosmetics and convenience items.
Yeah, they're doing a really good job of listening to us. And when I say us, I meant the people that are part of Alpha, giving feedback and so forth. And if they go out of line at all, they make adjustments. They want VIP in particular to be valuable because they want people to buy it, but they don't want it to be pay to win at all. And all the stuff on the cash shop is does nothing for the campaign. It doesn't give you any advantage at all at this point. So it's definitely nothing with pay to win on that part at all. It doesn't even do much for convenience in the campaign. It does some cool things afterwards. So like you can have buildings and parcels and so forth for your kingdom, which makes it so you can have a really cool base. But it doesn't make it so you can't anything with playing. So any questions on that one? I know a lot of people are worried about cash shops with pay to win, and I looked and I don't see anything at all.
All right.
Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Let's go.
All right. So the next thing that we can look at here is the skill tree. Now, the skill tree here, I personally think is kind of unique, and I really like the way that they implemented it. So basically, your skill tree is, I think of it like a mix between like Path of Exile and a couple of other systems where you've got like branching nodes. It's not anywhere as near as in depth as like that, but there are some branching nodes and stuff. But the way that the skill tree system works is you get experience by just owning the game, right? It doesn't matter if you play or log in or anything else, you're accumulating experience. Online, offline, it's the same across the board. The only thing is you have a cap of how much you can accumulate. So if you don't log into the game for 3 months, you're going to lose out a little bit. But all you have to do is when you do log in, and I don't know what it currently is. The last time they checked, they were still tweaking it, but I think it was like 3 days for non-VIP and 30 days for VIP that you could save up. So what that meant is, go ahead, Zorf.
Yeah, I was going to say that's what I've heard is 30 days for VIP and 3 days for non-VIP that have to go in and basically use up your points in whatever area you have picked. There's also going to be items that you'll be able to use in-game to gain experience if you're behind. So let's say you start a month later than everybody else. You'll be able to get an item that'll be craftable in-game to gain that experience up to make sure that you're caught up with what your potential is, but you'd never be able to go beyond the potential.
Right. So it's more like a server cap than an individual player cap. If you join the game 6 months after someone else, there's a mechanism in play for you to catch up to them. And also, if you play 5 hours a day or 50 hours a week, or, well, 5 hours a day or 20 hours a day, right, you get the same amount of points to spend in your skill tree. So you don't get any advantage for being logged in longer on the skill tree. That said, being logged in longer, you'll obviously get some advantages. You'll be able to mine more resources if you're logged in longer. You'll be able to craft more gear if you're logged in longer. You'll be able to attack more enemies if you're logged in longer and set them behind a little bit. So there is, right, incentive to log in and play still. It's not just an offline mobile game that's presented on a PC either. The idea here, and this is one of the things that I personally really like about it, is that you can, if you've got a long week at work, you can not play for a couple of days, log in, spend your points, go out with your guild to raid the enemy castle, and not feel like you're behind the rest of the guild or the player enemies because you missed a couple of days for work. To me, that's a huge selling point because I get busy sometimes and I don't have all day every day to play to keep up. So that's one of the things that I personally really like about this system in particular. So,
is there any questions on skill trees? Just an overall, we're going to go into several areas of this, so it'll dive in. But skill trees, we'll probably have in the future, we'll go over it in details and talk about it like a whole stream, going through each one. But right now, we're just trying to give an overview.
So the next kind of system that they have in place here is called Divine Sacrifice. So the Divine Sacrifice system is, as you collect resources, items, and relics and that kind of thing, you can sacrifice them to the god for divine favor or to the gods for divine favor. And this, it assists with the lore of the game and that type of thing as well. But as you sacrifice, you build up favor. And the favor lets you spend it to level up your character, and you can gain attribute points, strength, dexterity, etc. It's not a huge impact, but it's enough to make sacrificing worth it. And what this system does is it helps kind of balance out the economy, because then when you've got extra resources, instead of just mining apples all day, every day, and selling them and selling them and selling them and driving the price of apples down, it'll actually there will be a tipping point where it's more profitable for you to sacrifice to the gods and get these attribute points. Now, while we're talking about it, it's important to, or I think it's kind of nifty to point out, one of the item slots in Crowfall is your body, right? So when you're leveling up strength and dexterity and that type of thing, that goes onto a body that your crow inhabits, right? Your crow is your soul in this game, hence the name Crowfall. And when your soul inhabits that body isn't yours forever. You can play a campaign as a guinea pig healer, and eventually that guinea pig healer might die, or you might decide you don't like him anymore. So you eject your crow out of him, and you can go inhabit another body, or you can swap the vessels just like it was a sword or a shield or anything else. So you can actually do class swapping in the middle of campaigns and that type of thing. And there is a special whole crafting system just for crafting new characters. It's called necromancy, that you have to go to cemeteries and dig up graves, and that's your resource gathering, and then use necromancy to put the bodies together.
Yeah, that's really cool on giving that. And the point is, like, if you're going to try to win, and think of it like a Game of Thrones simulator, like you're playing like Game of Thrones, and you're whatever one you like, and you're trying to make your guild win, you're going to probably want to help out everybody to get these extra points, and there's going to be a lot of teamwork. So it's not going to really be about, hey, can I be the very best? It's going to be a lot, how can we be the very best? And a lot of things are going to be diminishing returns. So if you get up to like a certain average level, you won't be using a lot of resources to be able to get it in a lot of time. But to get to the top level, it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of resources. And it'll be better to get everybody up to an average level to be able to fight and win. So they really, really thought about a lot of these things, and I'm pretty impressed.
Yeah, and kind of to curtail off the end of that, an adage that we talk about a lot, Zorf and I, when we're brainstorming on the game, is it'll be more beneficial to have 5 people that are medium geared than it will be to have 4 people that are low gear and 1 person that's high gear. So that 1 person that's high gear, it's actually to their advantage to help out their teammates, right? It helps the group as a whole, and everybody does better. So when you're investing time, you might be better off going to that medium resource node and overmining it to get more than just what you need to share with guildies and that type of thing, than to get exactly what you need and then immediately move to the next higher level node. One of the other kind of cool things here is that the game it has PvE elements, right? There's going to be monsters to kill and that type of thing. But those PvE elements, and I think there's a slide for this later on. But
yeah, let's go to the slide so
okay.
Don't go too far off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Speaking of going too far off, here's our Eternal Kingdom slide. So you heard me talk about these a little bit earlier. But this, like we said, are where your players and guilds are going to go with your spoils of war from the campaigns. So I don't know what the rewards are yet, but we mentioned earlier, the campaigns are a thing that you can win, right? It's not just you log into the campaign and you play, and then that's just the rest of your life. There's an end goal. There's a winning thing. There's going to be winners and losers in the campaign. And when you win, you'll get spoils of war that you can put in your Eternal Kingdom. They might be cosmetic. They might be free VIP. We're not really sure at this point. I know that they've talked on the Crowfall forums about some of the stuff, but you'll get spoils for winning. It might be, a cool title to hang over your head saying that you won that campaign. So you can see on the second bullet here, we put a suggestion in with Crowfall to allow the Eternal Kingdoms to be a trade hub area during the campaign. We'll see what they do. So what we're hoping to see is that the Eternal Kingdoms you'll be able to go to and have it be kind of a peaceful place to encourage trade amongst the whole server, as opposed to just kill, kill, kill all the time, is the way that I look at it. But it also gives you an incentive to make your EK look cool. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, on that point is the EKs, a lot of people invested a lot of money and they on buildings and so forth when they were trying to help out Crowfall get started. So, and I imagine a lot of people are going to put a lot of times on their Eternal Kingdoms to make them look cool. And what I'm hoping for is right now, all the trade is done within the campaign and it's currently from person to person. And what I'm hoping for is to have some type of trade stalls that you can go to in the Eternal Kingdom and be able to do trade in there. So there'll be a lot of trade and you're going to want to advertise, hey, we're selling blah, 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 have forums, have organization of prices and so forth. So other guilds during peace times or people that you want to work with can go there and trade and you can be more successful. Because I believe that trade is going to be a very important part to win the battle. So it'll be interesting to see how they do it. But that'll only, what I'm talking about is only during the campaign, within that one campaign. So you couldn't, during the year they have seasons. So during spring, we'll use food is plentiful, the world is pretty and so forth. And then by winter, food is going to be really tough to get and hunger is going to be all over and people are going to be having a hard time surviving. So I believe that you can't have food plentiful in another game, in another campaign and transfer it over or anything like that. But if they keep it within one campaign, it could be really, I think it could be successful. So we'll see how that turns out. But we're going a little bit off topic. So.
Yep. So. I was gonna say when will the game release, right? To keep us moving here. So they plan on releasing the game with a soft launch. They're not gonna do an open beta type thing like what we're used to, where it's in open beta and it goes for 10 years. They're gonna do a soft launch, which is a full launch of the game, but they're not gonna heavily market it yet. We're looking at Q2 or Q3 of 2019 for the alpha beta to release. And it's, you can see there the official response is as early as possible in 2019 for the soft launch. So after the soft launch, there's no more server wipes, no anything. The game is live, the gameplay loop's complete. There's just not going to be heavy marketing behind it until the game's up and going, and then they'll continue with whatever they've got after that. And then one interesting tidbit here, they created a sister company to license the MMO engine out to other studios and already have a client. So it gives them 6 new engineers and to help them improve the performance on Crowfall. Now, this point in particular kind of hits home with me. When Crowfall first came out, there were when I first started playing it in the pre-alpha, there were some performance issues, but I logged in even just today, and it's a much smoother experience. So if you did check the game out 2-3 months ago, it's worth maybe hopping in and checking it out again. It's not a full game yet. There's not a gameplay loop, but they did fix a lot of those performance issues if you were there early on.
On that point, one of the biggest concerns that I have and many others have is the performance of the game. Will they be able to have the big battles and so forth? In the beginning, before they put everything in, they were able to do big battles. But right now, the system isn't running very well. So, and I'm sorry, I'll be right back.
No worries, Surf. Sounds like he's got a crying kid back there. So kind of moving on, one of the other things that we've really liked is there's great communication from the devs. For those who were nice enough to join and sit through this entire presentation so far, you saw at the beginning that we might be getting Thomas Blair on the stream with us tonight, who's one of the designers for Crowfall. And that's just from us reaching out and saying that we put this together and asking if they had time and they could join. He's driving home, so he might not be able to make it right away, which is why he might be late. But the devs have been really communicative. They've been really quick to turn around. If you send them a message, they respond pretty reasonably, and there's just a lot of back and forth of discussion. They give 2 updates a week, every Tuesday and Thursday for the last 4 years, and they've done a really great job of listening and going back. They themselves do live streams to update about the game all the time. They put them out on YouTube and that kind of thing. So, like, we've got a link here to the Q&A for August. I'm not going to watch that because I know that we're coming up on about an hour here, and we still have 10 more slides to go through. But that link is there. Again, I'll put a link to where you can get this PowerPoint or this presentation. It's a Google Doc, and you guys are more than welcome to come pick through it after. So we touched on this a little bit earlier, and that is that everyone's going to make a difference in the game. Even players who are really far ahead on gear and everything else, it's not going to be the type of game where you get so far ahead that you're taking out entire teams of other players. If you're way ahead on gear and that type of thing, you will have an edge in combat, but you're not going to be so far ahead that that you're one-shotting everyone. Now you can see in the slide it says gearing does make a huge difference in battle, and it does, but it's not so much of a difference that it's going to outweigh strategy and planning. The big thing that kind of interests me about this game is it's not like your build is going to be important, your gear is going to be important, but what's really going to drive home the battles is the strategy and your plan of attack. You're going to have to actually coordinate with your team and work together to take out objectives. You're going to have to work to hold a castle if those are in the field there.
Sorry about that, everybody. We have a new puppy, and my son got bit, so we had to deal with that. Going over this slide in particular, this is one of the major reasons that interests me with Crowfall is that everyone will make a difference, and you can log on and you can do some crafting, you can do some gathering, you can go help people do these things, you can do some PvE, PvP, you can go in small groups. They have areas where you can go in small groups and attack. You can have up to big groups like 50 plus where you can raid and do events. So there's going to be a lot of different things that you'll be able to do, and working as a team, going for the overall goal is what's going to make it so you win. It's not going to be where if you play 5 hours a week, you're completely fine, or if you spend 50 hours a week, either one will work together. And when you group, you don't have the issue of, hey, Namaru's playing 50 hours a week, I play 5, and when we group up, I can be just as powerful as him playing, and we both can contribute when we're doing whatever we're doing. So to me, that makes a lot more fun. I don't think the majority of the people like to be a lot weaker than other people or aren't able to do things because they're behind. So,
yeah. So
I think that's super cool.
Yeah. And a quick question from the chat here for you, Zorf.
Okay.
Have you heard anything about the guild member size limit yet? I know that that's something that was being discussed. I haven't heard anything.
From all indications, they're talking a guild size up to 300, and then from there they were talking about having it where you can have sub guilds. So I don't believe that guild size is going to be an issue.
Awesome.
For our guild in particular, I think that's going to be awesome because we do have a lot of great members, and it's not fun when people can't be in the same guild as others.
Yeah. Now, because it's on the slide here too, one of the things that I want to talk about, because it just sparked my memory, is, there's going to be 3 styles of play that we touched on earlier. There's going to be crafting, gathering, and then combat. All 3 of those roles are going to be essential, right? You can go full on combat, but doing so, right, you're going to be behind on gear and a little bit if you're not gathering resources and crafting them into something, or having somebody in your guild do that for you. So if you go full on combat and you're not getting gear from anyone, you're not playing the marketplace, doing anything, you're going to be behind other people that are doing those things. Every role is going to be important, and they're working to make sure that every role is fulfilling. So if you want to go full-time crafter, you can go full-time crafter, and it's not going to feel like you're missing out. There's actual crafting progression, and there's going to be better crafters than others. There's going to be some skill to it. They put some mini games in some of the stuff, like in resource gathering. They have crit areas that you can aim for to get extra resources out of, and that type of thing. But then the other kind of nifty thing is because it is a full PvP game, you're not going to just be a full-time resource gatherer and wander off into the middle of the woods by yourself to gather resources, because chances are there's going to be enemies there that are going to attack you, right? So you're going to need some defensive teams. You're going to need the support of the other players in your community to go out and help you hold that point while you're gathering the resources. And the idea of that, right, that can lead to some really interesting gameplay in my mind.
Yeah, so going a little bit in depth on that point, and we'll go a little bit further because we have slides on PvE and so forth, is most of the people are they're gonna be VIP, or they're gonna trade to get a VIP. And when they get that, that means that they're gonna be able to do two different things really well. They're gonna either be able, and most people, I'm guessing, are gonna do PvP or combat as one of them, and then they'll do either trade or they'll do gathering, crafting or gathering. So it'll be a choice on that which way they go. But there may be people that pick the other two, but people will be able to pick two, and then it's going to have to work as a team on the rest of it. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll go in more depth a little bit later on it. We did have one question on here, is how restrictive is trade? Trade in the campaign's unlimited. We'll be able to trade between each other as much as we want. There's no limits on trading anything, basically.
Yeah, and
let's
then
go to the next slide.
Okay, yeah, and trade outside the campaign, like we said earlier, is going to be TBD. That's going to be based on the campaign itself in the Eternal Kingdom. Speaking of trade, the 100% player-driven economy. So there is no NPCs that are going to be selling you your starting gear or anything like that. Everything you get in the game, if you remember back to the first slide, we said that this game's a mashup and it has some survival elements. You start this game like you would a survival game. You have your fists and you go punch a tree. That tree gives you some wood, and you can use that wood to make your first axe to chop down the tree more efficiently. There's progression that's going to work like that. And I see a question in chat asking if items are character bound. Not at this time. Everything is tradable, as far as I know. And that's a good thing, right? There's going to be people on the server at certain points where they're the only one on the server who has access to resources or the ability to craft certain gear because their group holds those resource nodes potentially. And so they can do that and use that to help their trade. Yep.
One of the questions on here are items character bound, and at this point there isn't any items that are character bound that I know of. So you will be able to trade, and most of the trade really is going to be between either your faction, if you're playing a faction game or campaign, or it'll be amongst your guild. And then we have another question. Is there any construction, like a survival game? At this point, there's no construction in the game, in the campaigns. That may change, but there are the buildings and so forth. There'll be things that'll be destroyable in the campaign, and the campaign ends, so the world can be devastated, and that's okay. But there's no construction in the campaign. In the Eternal Kingdom, there's all kinds. It's kind of like Minecraft, looking like you can build things up all over the place.
Yeah, and Minecraft's probably a good analogy for how gearing and crafting works in here. As you can see on the last bullet point here, equipment is important, but it's designed to decay and needs to be replaced. So if you're familiar with Minecraft, right, you don't make a set of iron gear and expect it to last you forever. You go out and you fight and try to find better gear, and when your iron gear breaks, you just make new iron gear because you have the resources for it.
Yeah, and this player-driven economy is going to be huge. This is where I think Tenacious will be able to excel because we can work as a team better than a lot of other guilds I've seen, and we don't. Nothing's just found or dropped out of luck. Everything's going to be. It's kind of like a survival game, but on steroids. So we can go through the next slide so it gives a little bit more detail.
Yep. So crafting, we touched on this earlier. You're hearing that a lot in these later slides because we got ahead of ourselves. But crafting is it's gonna be super important in the game, right? And it's gonna be very in depth. If you want to just be a crafter, you can do that. You can be the best dang crafter on the server. You're gonna need support from other people, right? You're gonna need to work with the resource gathering people. But the crafting is gonna be in depth. It's not just you pick up the resource and click and you're good. You're going to have to hunt for some of the resources. You're going to have to go out. The raw components will drop from some of the PvE stuff, and work through the crafting system that way. You don't have to be a crafter only. I see the chat shouting out. But you could if that's what you wanted to do. If that's what you were in the game to do, is you just wanted to craft, you could do that, and it would be a fulfilling experience for you.
Yeah, and crafting is going to be very detailed compared to a lot of games. It's not like you're going to make this formula and it'll make one thing. You might be able to pick, instead of silver, you can put gold, and it'll make it so it has different stats or better stats and so forth. And this Google spreadsheet, if somebody wants to look at it later, we'll go into detail on that. But we don't want to go in that much detail on this one. But just to say that there's a lot of being really good at crafting is going to make a big difference. Just like being good at any one of these specialties is going to make a big difference. It's not going to be like you can just be good at everything and know everything.
So, and we have a question in chat here about a pure crafting class. So, go ahead, Zorf. I'll let you answer.
Okay, so there isn't a pure classing class. Basically, you're not a class. You're a spirit, like a crow, like Namaru talked about earlier, and you inhabit things. On your skill tree, that we'll go through in more detail on a different day, you're going to be able to put points in any one of the 3 areas, and then the areas go into more specialty. So let's say you're going into gathering. Well, if you gather resources, maybe you want to specialize in necromancy and so forth, and you'll be really good at picking up digging up graves and getting the best resources out of there. So you might be 5 times better than a normal person, or have the ability to do things that other people aren't if you go down that skill tree. But other people, if they're in gathering, they might do better at gathering gold or diamonds or whatever resources. But there's not a specific class that does that. Your race and class choices won't affect that part of it.
Yeah, and closely. Yeah, and closely tied to the crafting, right, is the gathering end. I won't talk too much unless we get some questions about it here, but gathering, just like the crafting, they put a lot of care into the system. I talked earlier about like having some crit areas that people can hit. You can see on the screen there will be like mother loads that require multiple people to work together to gather against. So you can't do those solo, right? You're going to have to work with a group. Not that you'd ever really be solo, hopefully, because if there's a good gathering area, there's probably a high risk that enemies will be around. There should be a good amount of risk reward on the gathering.
Yeah. So one more point on this, and I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, like the gathering's going to be kind of fun. Instead of going, like, I really hate games that make you do dailies, that you just have to do something just to, because they want you to log in and do it. There's no reason. It's boring, and it's not even challenging. We've all probably played games like that. This time, you're going to be these people will be gathering, but somebody can come attack you and take what you just gathered for an hour. So you're going to want to make sure that you're in a safer area, or you have people there to protect you, or you have escape route to make sure that you don't lose what you did. So gathering is going to be challenging and fun, and risky all at the same time. So I personally like that. Other people, if they're not into the PvP side of things, will maybe not. But I want to make sure people understand what the game's about.
Yeah, and while we're on it, right? Because I've seen a few comments in chat too talking about like being a solo crafter or solo gatherer or solo PvP. Um, the game right now, it kind of feels like it's tweaked for that most people are going to choose two of those areas. You can just choose one area and max it out, but a lot of it is lateral progression, right? So you can choose to be really good at the sword or the polearm or both, or you could choose to be really good at the sword and get some gathering skill up, right? So you lose out on the ability to use a polearm, but you get extra gathering skill. So I wanted to just clarify, even though we're saying that you can go in just one of these paths, you don't have to. It's going to be really hard probably to do all three of them well, but doing two of them should be sustainable.
Okay, there's a question by Paradigm. He's asking if you can get the best gear by just doing combat. Nobody's going to be able to make the best gear in all areas or be able to earn it by drops or anything. It's all going to be everything's player made. So somebody might be really good at making one type of items. Another person might let's say a vessel, and somebody might be able to do armor, etc. And there's going to have to be trade that happens. So let's say you want to do just fighting. Well, when you fight, when you protect those people, then they're going to help you out. Or you go kill PvE mobs, and then they harvest them after you kill them. So it's all going to be teamwork to end up to make it so we're stronger as a guild.
Yeah, my guess is starting out for us, we're probably just going to have the people who want to go fight are going to get tasked with bringing back resources from enemies and stuff so that everybody else can make them better gear. So speaking of...
One of the things that he kind of joked about, but it's probably going to be true, is some of the people that just want to fight and they don't want to do anything with crafting or harvesting, maybe they buy VIP for one of these other people so that they can be better. Or maybe they get resources when they like gold, and they give the gold because when they kill people, maybe they get gold, or they kill a mob, they get gold off of it, they give it to the people they're crafting. So there's going to be trade involved and helping each other out for sure.
Yeah, PvP is really just you collecting resources from a harder to mine resource node.
It kind of is. Like PvE is you're killing a mob, and some of them will be more and more challenging. But the issue really is going to be is when you're killing that mobs, somebody else can jump you and kill you and take what you've been gathering. So there's that risk reward right there. And depending on how far away you go from being where a safer area is or where people are.
Yep. Yeah. So, and that's the PvE area and the PvP area a little bit, but on the PvP side, I'm sure some people are interested in how the combat works. So this talks a little bit more about the actual combat system instead of the rewards for PvP, which I think we covered above. Each world's unique, that type of thing. So there's going to be small targets, where there's 1 to 5 people to go after it, large targets that 50 people are going to want to go after. And then they've added really small targets that are for like 1 or 2 people, medium targets for a full group of 5, and then large targets for groups or raids of like 15 to 25. And basically what this is go ahead.
This is what we talked about earlier with the PvP. There's going to be a lot of different areas that they set up for targets. There's also going to be things that we do or at certain times that you'll want to take part in. And I want to make sure I answer this one of the questions about trading VIP for it being pay to win. You can give somebody you can buy $15 worth and give them the VIP, and that they may give you something you can barter with them for that. But most of the time you're going to do that within a guild, and most of the trading, because your guild, a lot of it, let's say the major draw of this game is Games of Thrones type of situation, so it's your guild versus other guilds. So you're going to want to help your guild mates as much as possible. and work together. And yes, you can become more powerful if people give you things, just like any other game. But it's not. I wouldn't say it's pay to win because you're not giving the company any money to do it. You're trading stuff that you get in game with other people. But I can see where some people will say it's pay to win because of the fact that it is $15 for VIP, or you got it in other ways. So it's everybody's opinion on it.
Well, and with that specific example of VIP, right? Since the VIP is tradable in game, it'll have a ceiling on it, right? It's not just going to be trade VIP for the best items and weapons in the game. It'll have a fixed price just like every other item. And so if you're trying to sell somebody VIP, you're only going to get a return that's in line with what the marketplace will bear.
Yeah, you'll get that, but it's not going to be like you're buying the top level sword for VIP. That's going to be working together to get to that level. I just don't see it as pay to win like a lot of other games, and it's going to be more you're working together as a team to get better.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so classes and races. We have a link here. We don't have a lot to talk about with classes and races on this presentation, so we do plan on doing these right now because Crowfall's still a little ways out. We plan on doing a presentation every other Thursday. So the next one will be not next week, but the week after. And we're going to cover classes and races a little more in depth than those. But I do want to call out specifically, because everybody seems to like it, there is a guinea race, which is a little guinea pig that can burrow in the ground. And that seems to be a crowd favorite. So you can be a little fluffy, cute guinea pig that runs around gathering mats and burrows in the ground whenever an enemy comes near you so you can run away.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of cool combinations. They have from range to melee, a lot of classes that buff. But the big thing with this game that I on the combat, and I know somebody asked about combat earlier, is the combat's action combat. It's not tab targeting, and it's going to be the fights are longer. They last 5-10 minutes often on PvP events that I've seen. But there's a lot of teamwork because people don't just die with 1 or 2 hits.
Yeah.
People are going to be able to heal and get out of the way. But people are going to have to work together to make sure they're targeting together, debuffing the right targets and buffing the right people. It's just a lot more targets, and it's not you're just going to die and then run back in to combat. Like, you don't want to die, and if you don't want anybody in your group to die, because that lowers your overall damage. So it's a lot more teamwork than a lot of other games I've seen.
Yeah, and that's where I was getting at earlier, is the gear does matter. It does make a difference, but you're never going to outgear strategy at some level, because there aren't one-shots in this game. You're not going to run into a crowd of 6 people by yourself and take them out, because you'll just get slaughtered, right? Just like real life, unless you're running in with a gun. If I run at a group of people with a sword, it doesn't matter really what type of armor I'm wearing. I'm probably not going to win that fight. So they're quite a bit longer. And one thing about I don't know why classes and races made me think of this, but that's kind of cool, is there is different stances. So for your crafting and gathering, going back to that for just 1 second, you have different hotbars for each of those. So you have specific skills just for gathering, and specific skills just for crafting, and specific skills just for combat.
So, and this is probably one of the first, we're thinking about doing it every 2 weeks, but this is probably one of the first things we'll go over as the classes, class race combos. And really, when we say class race, we're talking about vessels. And those are vessels that we inhabit. Your crow inhabits while you're fighting. And that can be changed, and you can change that as much as you want. But you're going to want to probably stay in certain areas. And we'll talk about it, like if you want to be a monster, or if you want to be elf or whatever, you're going to probably want to stay in those areas to make sure that you get the bonuses. But we'll go in more detail on that.
Yep. Now, the big question, and this is the opinion part of the slides, is should you buy now? And we kind of opened up by saying the game's pre-alpha right now. There isn't a gameplay loop yet, but they're talking about having a full finished gameplay loop in 5.8. Right now, the game is kind of a sandbox. So if you believe in the vision, you like what you see, um, buy into it. But set your expectations, right? It's not a complete game yet. You're not getting a complete game. It's still a work in progress. Things are still subject to change. Um, that said, the second bullet point here, right? Register for your free account today. They have a ton of people already signed up for the beta, so they're probably going to close it off at some point. There's no downside to doing it if you're interested in the game.
So a couple points on here is if you invest right now into the game, there's some places you can go, like Ansha's or like the Malachi. They have basically trading partners, trusted trading partners that you can get if you want bigger packages, so that you can have Eternal Kingdom or VIPs that are a little bit better value in the long run. Only do that if you're really invested and you know for sure. If you're interested in it, you can spend $50 and test it out, enjoy it. If you don't like it, you can sell to these trusted vendors, and they'll probably give you 30, $50 for your account. You're going to lose money on it if you do it that way low. But it's up to you and how much you want in it. If you invest now low and for $50, you don't have to pay for it ever. So it's kind of like buying a pre-package in a lot of these other games. And here is, you can see on this slide, it's Anxious and Marquee Dragon are the resellers, and they have some of the bigger packages like the VIPs and so forth that you can get a little bit better deal overall if you're really into it.
All right. Well, that is the presentation that we have for you guys. I want to open the chat up here for a couple of minutes before we close things down. So if you guys have any questions in the chat, go ahead and throw them out. This is the presentation that we have for you. Like we mentioned earlier, I don't know if it's going to have this level of production value every time because there's not always constantly tons of news to come out. But we're gonna make these streams a consistent thing and come in and talk about Crowfall, what we've got. We'll do some more Q&As. We'll probably get a little more casual in the future streams. Right now, I have all the notifications turned off. There's no video chat or anything. We might get a little more casual with it. We'll do some gameplay stuff. If you guys have any questions, toss them in chat now. If you have anything that you'd like to see in future streams or future content, go ahead, toss that in chat or submit it to us on Discord or Twitter. That'd be awesome. And
there are some comment videos. What you want to look at is ones that say 5.7, and we can link some of those up there to be able to for you to see it. I have not done much combat in the game, to be honest with you. We went around, tested some things out, and did a little bit, but nothing major.
Yeah, and while we're going, go ahead.
You kind of play it para. You don't have like an arrow. Like, it's different how you fight in this game. It's interesting, but it's different. And I want to try out more classes to be able to show you, and we'll do that. We'll go through the classes so you guys can see what they look like and how they play a little bit. Remember, you want to log into the game and show a little bit?
Sure. Let me get this presentation out of the way for you.
Okay, I'm going to be back. Give me like a couple minutes, and I need to make sure my boy isn't dying upstairs. So, sorry about that, guys. Thank you so much for showing up. I really appreciate everybody coming. I hope we answered most of the questions.
Yeah, and we can end this one with a little bit of gameplay. They do have two-factor authentication on everything. They use I use Authy. go through a normal launcher, normal stuff here, and we'll get a chance to check out some stuff. I downloaded the patches earlier just to make sure. Sorry if I'm blowing your eardrums off. So this is your Crowfall launcher page here. Oh, okay. You guys are telling me it's fine, so I'm going to turn it back up. Maybe I just blown my eardrums off. So this is kind of your Crowfall home screen, right? When you log into the game, this is what you're going to see. And there's a couple of distinct things here, right? You've got your different worlds with your campaigns and your kingdoms. So for right now, I'm just going to hop into my Eternal Kingdom. I'm not registered for any of the campaigns at the moment. I'll hop into my Eternal Kingdom, and you can add favorites, as you can see here, and browse. You'll be able to visit other people's Eternal Kingdoms. This is kind of like your home. Oh, hey! Welcome to the chat. Yeah, so I see in the chat here too, we do have a guest speaker. That's Thomas Blair there. If you guys have any questions too, he is one of the designers for Crowfall, and he will absolutely be able to fill in any gaps on my knowledge. Okay, so what we have here is I've logged into my Eternal Kingdom, and like I said, I know guineas are a favorite, so I'm playing one. This particular guy is a cleric. You can see like a normal survival game at the top here. We've got some health bar, we've got some normal stats, HP, mana, stamina, that type of thing. We've got a level, some core stats and everything. We've got gear over here. And there's not a whole lot going on with my character right now because he's brand new and just started. Separate from my character, you know, we talked about, I'll give a little sneak peek of the I'll give a little sneak peek of the skill tree here. So you can see I haven't done a whole lot, but here's like the combat skill tree, right? So I have VIP, which means I can do 2 tracks at a time, and you log in and you've got your different nodes here that you can go down. And this experience here, this 3,408, you'll see it just go up over time. That happens automatically. And on its own, if I want to spend it, I can come down to the nodes and spend that experience, and you'll see it's decreasing as I spend it. And each of the different nodes here, right, we've got this particular node, it increases my attack power, my health, and my critical hit chance modifier, right? As I spend on this node, you'll see that these little white lines are reaching out towards the next skills until finally at 4 points, it unlocks the next nodes in the skill. So, so that's kind of like the high-level skill trees, right? And like we've talked about, just like with the 3 different tracks where everything's different, you've got your profession, which is, you know, your combat, crafting, that type of thing. You've got combat, crafting, and exploration, which is like kind of your resource gathering and your general movement through the world. But then you've also got down here a racetrack where you can level up for a specific race, because like I mentioned during the presentation, your race and class are interchangeable. It's just an inventory item that you can swap out. So like I'm investing in Mankind right now, right? And as I invest in Mankind, I can go through and give myself permanent bonuses for whenever my crow inhabits a human vessel. I'm also investing in monsters right now, right? And as I go through and max out the monster mastery, this will help all monster archetypes of classes, or of races. Likewise, you've got your classes. Right now I'm looking at fighter and mage. There's 3 archetypes, fighter, mage, and rogue. And then up on your races, you can see there's mankind, sylvan, and monster. And within each of these, you'll see that there's subtrees, right? So if you're training, right now I'm training mankind. Once I get far enough in mankind, it will unlock pure blood and half blood mankind. and I can start training in the different races as I go down. So I wanted to look at that real quick. We'll have more in-depth coverage of the skill tree in future videos, but for right now, this is what the game looks like. And you know, just like we said in a survival game starting off, I walk up and punch a tree.
Hey Nimmer, why don't you just do that for a second? I want to bring out the fact that Blair joined us, that we talked about earlier, and he's answering some questions in chat.
Okay.
One of the questions that we asked earlier, Blair, was what's the max number of members that can join a guild? My understanding was you guys were talking about 300 members in a guild was max, with possibly sub guilds in it too. Okay, he answered 200 or 300.
Okay. Yeah.
If anybody else has any questions, please type it in chat and see if we can get them answered.
Awesome. Thanks, Orf. If you want to keep monitoring that, I'm just gonna show off a little bit of the starting gameplay here, give people a feel for what's happening. Right now, I'm punching some trees and collecting wood, and when I get there, right, I've got my crafting window now, and I want to make myself a basic harvesting axe. So you can see it takes me 3 chunks of wood, and this is what we were talking about in the presentation. Like, this calls for wood, but right now I'm putting in not wood. If I put in different types of wood here, it can potentially make different types of axes for me. Right, so now I've made my axe, and I can go ahead and equip it. I put that on my tool slot now. And now, when I come up and I chop down tree, you'll see versus my fist, I do quite a bit more damage. There's that little circle that popped up there was the critical indicator I was talking about. See that right there, I just got a critical hit on the tree and it did significantly more damage. So I can collect. Now, one thing I want to point out is if you'll notice down here on my survival tray, my axe has a little bar underneath it. That's the durability. Again, you know, this is the survival aspects, but like we were talking about, durability is going to play a part. I don't care about keeping this particular axe that I just crafted. I care about having enough wood to make another axe when I need it. You can tell I'm not that great at gathering yet. I'm missing all my crits. But some of the other cool stuff, and actually I'll open the menu here to show you. Right, I've got my survival tray and my range tray. The range tray here is because my particular class uses ranged weapons. But on my survival tray, I have skills here that I can pull from the top. You've got passive skills, ultimate skills, and then you've got your powers in between here. So one of them that everybody likes to see, again, is the burrow. But you can see I've got this, I've got recall, I've got my lug chop, but my ultimate skill here is energetic harvesting. And that gives you a buff to harvesting. So as I'm gathering, if you can see, I'm not sure how to unlock the mouse here other than hitting escape. I have this little icon down here that builds up pips. As I build up pips, I can give myself a buff for harvesting. So I'll show you, when I hit this once, it should hit for 87. If I activate my harvesting buff there, for a short amount of time, I do increase damage to the tree and I harvest faster. Those pips build up just as I harvest. So when we were talking earlier about the game and how the crafting system and the resource system are in-depth and they're not just running up and doing stuff, this is some of the things that we're talking about. You can give yourself passives that help, you can give yourself active skills that help in gathering. There's resource management, you know, you have a stamina bar, and the more that I work, the lower my food meter is going to get. So eventually I'm going to have to, you know, eat some of these apples I'm picking up.
Yeah, one of the things they made a change on is it's not, and I don't know if it's active on this or it's going to be 5.8, but I watched one of the videos, and it's going to be time-based. So instead of how much activity you do, it's going to be just time. So you're going to get more and more hungry over each certain amount of time. So if you fight more or whatever, it's not going to be a detriment.
And so here's the map for my Eternal Kingdom. You can see I don't have a whole lot right now. My Eternal Kingdom is is a tiny little thing here. But I can run around with what I've got here. I forget some of our hotkeys, but I can come in and I can craft, and you can see, right, I've got my basic harvesting stuff. So next maybe I'll make a harvesting hammer so I can start getting some stone.
Okay. One of the questions I want to ask Blair, and it goes a little bit with Paris saying about guild friendly. One of the things that we'll be doing as a guild is we'll be probably one of the guilds that does a lot with crafting and working together as a team. And when I read the description originally, I thought Eternal Kingdoms was going to be the place where all this trade would happen. But as more and more I've read and so forth, it sounds like the goal really is only for what is won will be traded in the Eternal Kingdom. My idea, and I posted on the forums, was that you have identity. So if you're playing campaign 1, you can trade items in campaign 1 in the Eternal Kingdom, basically having trading styles only for that campaign. And I was wondering if something like that would be feasible.
So right now, while we're getting some of these questions answered, I'm grabbing up some stone and going to start making myself some basic fighting gear, and then go down and try to show some of the PvP before we call it a stream here.
Yeah, Paradigm, he doesn't have, unfortunately, he's not able to talk right now. I asked him if he could do that. With the Eternal Kingdom part, though, I thought, from my understanding, what people are telling me, it's only for what you export out. And what my idea, or what I was hoping for, is that everything within that campaign. So if he's making throwing hammers right here, that he could put 20 throwing hammers or 100, 200 throwing hammers on a vendor, and other people in our guild could buy them or trade. Right. I understand that. That's the part I'm talking about, the campaign trading. Because obviously, for me, trading face to face is nowhere near trading on a stall, and because the stall makes it so people can buy it 24/7. Those rodents really look cool.
Yeah, and you can see up there, there's an altar in my Divine Kingdom. That's where we were talking about the divine sacrifices. You can make some sacrifices for favor up there. This is the crypt. I haven't actually been to that yet.
Yeah, go to the crypt so they can see. You can switch. This is kind of where you can switch vessels and stuff.
Yeah, so I haven't been in here yet.
Yeah,
this is
that's what I was hoping for, is that you could have, let's say, an item where you can have free to your buddies in your guild, or if you have a faction or another guild, let's say we're playing a throne simulator part of it, where we can trade with allies, but maybe not trade with enemies.
Poor little guy doesn't want to kill himself. There he goes. So
right now, the Eternal Kingdom is really going to be where he's trading and where where we build up a city. It's not really the campaign. Why don't you exit out and go into a campaign so they can kind of see what that is? That's really where most of the game is going to be played.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go over there. I don't know for the stream tonight how much longer we're going to be on. It's going to take me a while to get anywhere in the campaign, I think.
Yeah, sadly for Saren, the customization isn't as high as some other games.
Yet.
They went more for playability. Sorry, Saren. no purple everything. Maybe that can be a winning condition. We can get purple dice.
All right, so here's a campaign that, looking at it, just to give a little example too, you can see there's 28 out of 150 people in the campaign. Claim the throne in each fort or keep for your faction. Collect materials to fortify your stronghold. Order and chaos win by capturing strongholds. Balance wins by ensuring that neither order nor chaos dominates the map. So for me, when we start off, it's probably going to ask me to join one of those 3 factions. This would be a one of the faction campaigns that we talked about earlier. I'm probably going to join Balance. That's what we've worked on a little bit.
Balance because we're still kind of noobs, and it makes it in the middle. I stand corrected. Blair mentioned that they have a lot of customization in 5.8. I was going off of what we have now, and the vessels don't have a lot.
Nightshade flowers are purple. Yeah, we'll stick with what I know for now. My little hero. So similar to the EK, right? I start off on the balanced beachhead, and it looks pretty similar, except for this giant town here, right? And me jumping down a cliff and getting dizzy.
So the beachhead that he has right now is a free area, a safe area. He won't be attacked by other people, but there are areas where he can do some PvE and so forth. And then when he leaves the beachhead, then he's going into an area where he can be attacked.
Oh, you know what? I should have thrown some of that stuff in my spirit bank to show how that works too. To show the import-export system.
Yep, you can do that.
So here, we kind of go through the same starting part. Got to get myself some wood.
Blair, earlier I mentioned that I've heard that you guys were shooting 5.8 around October 31st. Is that an approximation? I know there's no set date for sure, but...
Oh. Commenting on the animation right as I hide it behind a leaf for you.
So, Saren asked about limitations on bags and also import-export in the banks and so forth. We do, right now, I think it's set up as 100, but there will be import-export from your EK that you'll have. But once you're inside, you'll be able to trade as much as you want. I wouldn't call it a survival game, but there's definitely survival aspects to it, in my opinion. It is like what he's showing right now. This is obviously very survival, but it's going to be you're going to have a campaign with a goal, and the goal won't be necessarily like other survival games. Blair made a comment saying they're calling it a throne war game without that translates to an MMO with a win condition.
And you see there, I just got a critical hit on the tree. Yeah, the throne war with a win condition sounds about right. And personally, I think that that's kind of cool. I like the idea of being able to win the MMO. My big draw to the game initially was really the kind of drop-in, drop-out nature of it, while also being able to dump in, having content to be able to dump hours into if you want, right? I'm not going to feel like I have to log in every single day and grind away at dailies. I'm going to log in when I want to play the game and when it's going to be fun for me.
Yeah, and he is in a safe area right now. This is called the beachhead, and everything's safe in this area. One of the questions that we asked earlier, Blair, and maybe you can help us, is, and I'm sure it's going to depend on how campaigns go, but we hear, like we have right now, where we have in the 3 factions, and then a lot of people talk about the dregs being the most likely for the other one if you guys launch switch to 2. When I read about the dregs originally, it seemed to be very hardcore, where you could do damage to people in your own guild and so forth. And I don't see that being obviously really good. I would think it'd be more where you don't do damage to your own guild, but it'll be a guild throne simulator type game. Is that the one that's most likely? Is there something else? Okay, so, but you won't have friendly fire, is that correct? Okay. Yeah, because I've heard at the original that people are talking about having friendly fire, and I would think that'd be pretty hardcore to start off with as a choice. I'm sure some people will like it, but...
Poor Boulder indeed.
Nope, no AFK crafting. It's all active.
Yep, that is another person over there. Well, was another person over there, but yes, that Mr. Errol was another player that was logged in here for a moment. Tried to go for that crit and missed the tree entirely. Hey. Got the little nub.
One of the questions on here is how active is the crafting? Other games seem to be cool at the beginning, but it gets really tedious in the end. Maybe Blair can expand on that. We went over it a little bit earlier, but he might have more information than I have.
Well, so let me see if I can show a difference too while we're talking about it. Yeah. So this slag is gonna, if I was gonna harvest it, would take me quite a while. I was gonna try to show you the slag is a better material than the cobblestone I've been gathering. And so I was going to show you the difference that changing stone type, for instance, in crafting works. And you saw there I just ran out of stamina. So in the crafting window, I'm not going to be able to show you the difference, but I can talk to it. Well, they're typing the response out in chat too. So I'm trying to build this one-handed hammer, and you can see it calls for 6 pieces of wood and 6 pieces of stone. I'm putting in the cheapest wood and cheapest stone in the game. If I was to put in other stone, like that slag stone, I could make a slightly better item. So there's a little bit there, and you can mix and match the basic components and get very different results based on what you put in.
Yeah, so from here you're gonna get like crafting tables and so forth. But one thing Blair said, and maybe there's a video on it, but he talked about having factories and so forth and production, and I have not seen that one yet. But that sounds pretty cool. But they'd advance that far up. I know that the crafting goes a long ways beyond what I've seen.
So now, I have a basic attack hammer. I should probably, on my range tray here, I'm a cleric, so I have some healing skills and some crowd control. I'm going to go try to find us a couple of enemies. The throwing hammer here is actually pretty cool too, the way that it works. Yeah, see, so down here I've got some pack pigs.
There's another question about mounts and so forth. I know that they were talking about, like, Fae can fly kind of, but they really kind of glide. It doesn't sound like they like to have any air mounts at all, just regular mounts, my understanding. But maybe he can answer more on that area too. So this kind of gives you an idea on how the combat goes and how he's targeting.
Right, and he's not chasing me now because I used a skill on him that holds him in place for a while. And see, now that I've killed him, so he doesn't drop a ton of loot, right? You get a little bit here, but really, and I should have done this earlier, what you can also do with these guys is
you can skin them.
You can craft a harvesting knife, which luckily I have enough wood on me
So
for.
they talked on here, Blair said that mounts are more likely going to be 5.9 feature, which is 2 patches away. Patches seem to be taking 3+ months between each other, so it's a little ways off. Paradigm asked about fast travel, and I know there's something with ruin gates with fast travel in per area.
Now, something I want to point out, just because it happens to be right now, if I was in a hostile area, I would be pretty vulnerable right now, because in addition to me, you know, being bent over harvesting this thing, I'm actually in a different stance entirely, and to switch stances takes a second. So while I'm out here harvesting, I'm extra vulnerable because I can't defend myself if somebody came at me right now, because I'm in the harvesting stance, right? And I actually have to switch to my combat stance if I want to attack someone that came after me. So you do get a little bit vulnerable while doing that.
One of the comments that Blair made on here is that currently we're having like 4 zones, and 5.8 the next patch looking up to 10 zones, so they're going to increase the size of the area drastically. And after he gets stuff pull up and equipment up and so forth in this area, he'll be able to pull multiples and kill them. The other question on here, does cracking, I believe you are, but I'm not positive. I can't answer this one. If you want to get in, you can get it for, I know they had one sale, but I believe $50 for the game. We posted, if you look at the link, there's some affiliates that you can buy for secondhand games. If you want like Kickstarter package, it might be a little bit better deal if you want bigger, but from the website, $50 for the base game, and that'll allow you to play it live when the game is launching.
And because we were talking about crafting and hunger and stuff too, while I'm harvesting from this guy right here, some of the drop I'm getting is meat, and in order to cook that meat, you know, you gotta cook it to eat it and that type of thing, so there's quite a little bit extra. And now, like you can see, my buddy Latest here is joined, so I'll give him a little buff here. This stuns enemies and will heal Latest, but you can see, even though he's not in my group, I can target him and help him out in combat.
And one of the things that you're seeing here around circles and so forth, that kind of like it's going to happen a lot in PvP. You'll see that the other people have areas on the ground where there could be a buff, or it could be good or bad, depending on which side you're on. So you're going to have to be moving around. This is going to be a bot game where you're just trying to DPS as fast as you can. You're going to be wanting to move around and hit the right people. Targeting the right person is going to be crucial in PvP.
Right, so like, I don't know if you noticed there, but when I just tried to heal Latest, I had to actually, like, take a second to look at him to heal him. There's no tab target or anything like that, as far as I know.
Okay, can you turn down the volume a little bit on the combat?
Yes.
They're not able to hear us.
I sure can. I'm sure I can just do it in-game, but this is easier. There we go. So that should take care of it for you, Zorf.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Blair mentioned on here, for people that aren't able to read chat, is that The combat's pretty much set, but there's always polishing going on. So what you're seeing here is kind of like, obviously, the beginning of combat. They're just starting off. This is like your level 1 through 5 in a lot of other games. He mentioned like assassins are all about stun blocking.
Right, and I'm playing a cleric. Normally, clerics have this throwing hammer and a shield. I didn't craft the shield yet, so while we're out here, I might try to chop down some of these trees and get myself my shield. And like Zorf mentioned earlier, the more complex stuff will require crafting benches and that type of thing. So you won't be able to just make all your gear out on the fly. Can you be a Guinea assassin? I don't believe so, but you can be a Guinea duelist.
One thing we noticed is a lot of our people in our guild happen to love Guinea, and they're limited to the 3 classes. Are there any possibility of expanding that, especially for assassin? The duelist is what he mentioned here, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and he mentioned the retaliate skill as well. So we can see that here, right? I have the retaliate skill, and I can put that on there and recover from knockdown or stun effects and jump to your feet with a barrier preventing up to 500 damage for 6 seconds.
And the duelists get pistols and rapiers. And I'll say that some of the videos I watched, they're pretty effective.
Yeah, going back. Yeah, I was gonna say, going back to what we talked about earlier with combat, the goal, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the combat should be pretty well balanced, but you're gonna have areas where one class has an advantage, right? Because that's part of your strategy. So, like your duelist that uses guns should be more effective when there's a large open area that's relatively flat, or when they have the high ground. But you know, a tank class or a warrior class will have the advantage in tight, closed corridors, like inside of a fort. Psh. Who needs stealth when you can burrow? Oh.
Yeah, he's saying you can be in stealth for 2 minutes when you're burrowing. And then there's counters to it by certain classes.
Yeah, so I do think it's about 10:15 now, though. I think I'm going to have to start closing down here shortly. Is there anything specific in the game that you guys would like me to show off on the end of this stream before we call it a night, or definitely any more questions?
Yeah. With Blair here, we want to definitely say thank you for showing up. If there's any questions for Blair, please ask him now. It's not like we get a developer or somebody from Artcraft right in here to talk to directly.
Yeah, you guys will be stuck with just me and Zorf and latest for a lot of these future ones, I'm guessing.
Yeah. And we won't be as accurate as he is on the answers.
That's
We'll do
true.
our best, but we're not part of the team.
Yeah, you can see down here I've got cooking meats, and I can make some brisket. Put the animal meat in there. And it says right there, requires campfire to craft. Which, of course, the campfire, you have to make the campfire first, which is under your one of the skills. You might actually need a skill to be able to make it. So what I can do instead is make the meat tartare. Get wrecked because I'm crafting in the middle of a fight.
Yeah, they've done a much better job on the interface. They've smoothed it out a lot. Same with if you look at the chat logs, have drastically improved. My understanding is they're going to make another path on the skill trees to improve on there too. They're definitely you can see the progression, but it takes a lot of time to get all this stuff done. Paradigm asked if skill animation canceling is a thing. And then the other question is, after that one is customization, and how much will there be? You can do a little bit now, I think. Not like some games. I will say that the little tweaks in the graphics and so forth compared to 6 months or a year ago is pretty drastic too. Clear answered, right-click powers, usually dodge and blocks, will interrupt the current power in order to execute them.
Yeah, so let's see. Do I have enough? So I need, what, 2 more wood? Nope, that one's decoration. So I'll get 2 more wood and show you the shield here too, because my right-click ability is to block with the shield.
Yeah, and that's what he was talking about.
Yep. So I figure I can demo that real quick.
Yeah, the game has come a long, long ways. And one of the things, and players here, and I think I talked about earlier, we really like, compared to like a lot of the Eastern games, just the opportunity to talk to the devs, and they seem to listen, and they give us feedback. Like, you get to watch videos of them every couple weeks. It seems like they're coming out with videos, giving us updates, what they're working on and what's going to change. And on the forums, they seem to really listen to suggestions, and they've made a lot of changes off of what people said.
So here I am in my defensive stance, and we'll see as I attack him. See, now I can block some hits. And I take slightly reduced damage from him. So, I mean, the clerics in this game, I like them because they're almost like your old school D&D clerics, right? They can fight.
One of the questions was asked is there any RNG based for gathering and crafting?
That's a good question. I'm
gonna let him answer that, because I know that there's definitely different formulas that can be used, but I don't know if there's percentages where things are better. He mentioned that the crafting and harvesting system are both pretty in-depth, which I totally agree. They're really in-depth on how far you can go and what you can create. Blair, is there any RNG in it? If I put the same formula and put the same items, will I get everything the same? Or will every once in a while crit and get a better item? Or fail?
I believe there are failure chances. I haven't seen them yet, but I can't show right now. But when you add everything in, it shows a failure chance on it.
So while there's RNG in the loot that comes out and the die rolls that are crafting, there are always mitigation by stat progression.
Yeah, so maybe this is a good time too talk or to show, because we were talking about the skill tree being in depth and that kind of thing. So
yeah, can we? One of the comments Sarah made. Can you look at the skill tree? She's asking, can you be all things in crafting as a master, and you won't be able to do that because when you go further in the skill tree, you're going to have to pick which areas you're going to want to do. So, like you can see here, you can pick. These are all the different on the second level where you're going to go, and each one of those levels has a whole tree to go in on.
Right. So to even begin doing rune making, you first have to complete your crafting basics tree. So you have to complete this tree before you even get into like rune making. Well, you don't necessarily have to complete it, but you have to get far enough in this tree.
You'll have to have enough points to be able to do it. Yep.
Right, to go into this rune making tree. And then in the rune making tree, you can spend points. Now, that said, right, because each one of these, if you look at them, some of these are big, some of them are incremental. So like you can see here, you've got rune making craftsmanship, which gives you experimentation points when you take this node. And then you can get to this node over here, which is craftsmanship mastery, which gives you experimentation and experimentation points. To get there, though, you can take either of these paths. You can take either the experimentation path or the experimentation point path, right? So it's two different resources, and you can choose which path to go down. Or if you're really trying to master out, you can go down both paths just to get the bonuses. So if you wanted to be really, really, really awesome at rune making, you're going to spend more points in this tree, which necessarily means that you'll have less to spend in the other trees. And so
one of the questions I did have here for you, Blair, is one of my hopes is that there's going to be a limit on total points. So eventually, let's say 2 or 3 years down the road or 5 years down the road, somebody could not max all the skills. So it doesn't really, everybody's all the same. And will there be, if you're VIP, will you be able to have a reset? Let's say you pick an area that you decide, hey, I really messed up. I don't want to do blacksmithing. I want to do something different.
Yeah, so now while he's answering that, we were talking about the skill tree too, right? Like, so here's my monster track. So this gives strength and constitution to every monster. So if I spend points here, right, my little guy counts as a monster, and he'll get that strength and constitution. But I accidentally clicked on it. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't have enough experience saved up for even 1 point in this node. So I spent all my experience and still need 936 more experience to rank up. So I just let that sit, and, you know, it does its thing. I can come back tomorrow night, whatever, and put a couple of points in. Oh, does that answer your question, Zorf? If you play for about 15 years, you can max everything.
Yeah, hopefully, if they go that long, which would be awesome, they'll add more. I don't like the idea of everybody being the same. I think we're getting close to wrapping it up. Does anybody have any other questions? One thing, real quick, if you look on the bottom right, you can see that they do have a day-night that they've implemented. So monsters change at night and so forth. It's really cool too.
Oh no! I wasted my my buff because I wasn't targeting right.
Okay. Well, I think we should end it here. Thank you so much for everybody that showed up, and special thanks for Blair for showing up. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Definitely thank you for tuning in. This time, you know, those who have seen my stream before, we took out all the notifications and everything. Those will be put back in probably in future streams, but we didn't want to have interruptions during the presentation. But thank you all for coming out. Special thanks, Blair, for coming out and answering some questions for us here It was really awesome. Hopefully you guys got the information you were looking for. And, if you were too scared to put questions in chat here, you can send them to us. You can send them to Twitter, Discord, any of the places, and we'll try to get them answered next time. With that said, thank you guys for coming out. Have a great evening.